A single dad helped a pregnant woman on the coldest night of the year, only to discover she was his first love from 23 years ago. She had no home, no family, no one in this world who cared whether she lived or died. He had buried his wife 3 years before and hadn't truly smiled since. But when their eyes met outside that grocery store, when he heard her voice say his name for the first time in over 2 decades, everything he thought he knew about fate, about loss, about second chances, shattered. She was pregnant with another man's child, homeless, broken beyond recognition, and he was about to make a decision that would change both of their lives forever. This is the story of how 2 shattered hearts found their way back to each other when neither of them was looking. If you believe that some people are meant to find each other again, if you've ever wondered whether the love you lost might still be out there waiting, this story is for you. Before we begin, please tell us where in the world are you watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Now, let's go back to the night everything changed. The evening of February 7th, 2017, the temperature in Ashland, Virginia dropped to 31 degrees. Raymond Monroe gripped the steering wheel a little tighter as he pulled into the parking lot of Harper's Grocery, the old family-owned store on the corner of 5th and Madison. The kind of place where the cashiers still knew your name and asked about your kids. In the back seat, his 7-year-old daughter, Hazel, hummed softly along to the radio, her small feet swinging beneath her booster seat, her pigtails bouncing with every movement. "Daddy?" Raymond glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Yes, sweetheart? Can we get hot chocolate, the kind with the tiny marshmallows?" He smiled, a tired smile, but a real one. "We'll see. We'll see." That phrase had become his default answer over the past 3 years. Not yes, not no, just "we'll see." Because Raymond had learned the hard way that promises were dangerous things, that life could change in a single heartbeat, that the people you loved most could be stolen from you without warning. 3 years ago, his wife Margot had kissed him goodbye on a Tuesday morning, the same way she had every morning for 9 years. She smelled like vanilla and coffee. She told him she'd pick up Hazel from daycare and grab groceries on the way home. She laughed about something. He couldn't even remember what anymore. And then she walked out the door. 4 hours later, she collapsed in the daycare parking lot. A brain aneurysm, the doctors said. A blood vessel in her brain had ruptured without warning. She was gone before the ambulance arrived. They told Raymond she likely felt no pain, that it happened within seconds. But Raymond felt that pain every single day since. He had learned to cook breakfast, learned to braid hair, badly at first, then better, learned to check under the bed for monsters, and read bedtime stories with all the silly voices Margot used to do. He had learned to be everything Hazel needed, even when he felt like he had nothing left to give. "Daddy, come on!" Hazel's voice pulled him back to the present. She was already unbuckling her seatbelt, eager to escape the cold car. Raymond stepped out into the freezing air, the wind biting at his cheeks. He reached for Hazel's hand, and together they walked toward the store entrance. That's when he saw her. A woman sat alone on the old wooden bench near the shopping carts. She was visibly pregnant, 7 or 8 months along, maybe more. Her belly strained against the thin jacket that offered almost no protection against the bitter wind. Her head was bowed, her shoulders trembled, and even from 15 feet away, Raymond could see the exhaustion radiating from her, the kind of tiredness that went deeper than sleep could fix. Hazel tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, is that lady okay?" Raymond didn't answer right away. Something about the woman's posture, the way she seemed folded into herself, like she was trying to disappear, stirred an ache deep in his chest. He recognized that posture. He recognized loneliness when he saw it. "Stay right here for a second, okay, sweetheart?" He positioned Hazel just inside the store's heated entrance, where an elderly greeter in a red vest smiled warmly at her. "I'll be right back." Raymond approached the bench slowly, his boots crunching against the thin layer of frost on the ground. He didn't want to startle her. "Excuse me, ma'am?" No response. He took another step closer. "Ma'am, are you all right? It's awfully cold out here to be sitting alone." Slowly, the woman lifted her head, and Raymond Monroe felt the entire world tilt beneath his feet. Those eyes, soft brown, flecked with gold near the center, like honey catching sunlight. He would have recognized them anywhere, even after 23 years. His voice cracked on a name he hadn't spoken out loud in over 2 decades. Adrienne? The woman's lips parted, her breath caught in her throat, and for a long, frozen moment, neither of them moved. Then, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, "Raymond? Raymond Monroe?" Raymond couldn't breathe. The parking lot, the cold, the sound of cars passing on the street behind him, all of it faded into static. The only thing that existed in that moment was the woman sitting before him, Adrienne Sinclair, his first love, his high school sweetheart, the girl who had written poetry in the margins of her chemistry notebook and laughed at his terrible jokes and kissed him under the bleachers after the homecoming game in 1997. The girl who had moved across the country after graduation and slowly, painfully, disappeared from his life. He had searched for her. For years he had searched. Before social media made finding people easy, he had tried everything: phone books, old addresses, mutual friends who had lost touch. But Adrienne Sinclair had vanished like smoke. And eventually, Raymond had accepted that some people were only meant to be in your life for a season. He had moved on, met Margot, built a family, but he had never stopped wondering. And now here she was, pregnant, shivering, sitting on a bench outside a grocery store in the same small Virginia town where they had fallen in love. "Adrienne," he breathed again, sinking down onto the bench beside her. "Is it really you?" She nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't believe... Raymond, She couldn't finish the sentence. Her voice broke, and she looked away quickly, as if ashamed to be seen like this, broken and battered and so far from the girl she used to be. Raymond's gaze swept over her, taking in details he had missed before. The dark circles under her eyes, the chapped lips, the way her hands trembled even as she tried to hide them in her sleeves. This wasn't just cold. This was exhaustion, hunger, despair. "Daddy?" Raymond turned to find Hazel standing a few feet away, the elderly greeter hovering uncertainly behind her. Hazel's brow was furrowed, her head tilted in that curious way children have when they're trying to understand something that doesn't quite make sense. "Daddy, is she your friend?" Raymond swallowed hard. He looked back at Adrienne, at the woman who had once meant everything to him, and who now looked like she had nothing left in the world. "Yeah, sweetheart," he said quietly. "She's an old friend." Hazel nodded thoughtfully. Then she walked closer and studied Adrienne with the unfiltered honesty only a 7-year-old could possess. "You look cold and sad. Are you sad?" Adrienne's lower lip trembled. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm okay, sweetie." But Hazel wasn't convinced. She looked up at Raymond with a serious expression that reminded him so much of Margot it made his chest ache. "Daddy, we should help her. That's what Mommy always said, right? If someone's sad, you help them." Raymond felt something crack open inside him. He reached out and squeezed Hazel's shoulder. "You're absolutely right, sweetheart." He turned back to Adrienne and extended his hand. "Come inside with us, please. Let me get you something warm to drink, something to eat. You can't stay out here." Adrienne hesitated, shame flickering across her face. "Raymond, I can't. I don't want to be a burden. You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to. Please, Adrienne, let me help." For a long moment, she just stared at him, as if trying to determine if this was real, if he was real. Then, slowly, she placed her trembling hand in his, and Raymond helped her to her feet. They sat in the small cafe area near the back of the store, the warm air slowly thawing the chill from their bones. Raymond ordered 2 coffees and a hot chocolate with extra marshmallows for Hazel, who had claimed the table next to them and busied herself with a coloring book from her backpack. Adrienne wrapped her hands around the paper cup, absorbing its warmth like it was the most precious thing she had ever held. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 people carrying decades of unspoken words, unsure where to begin. Finally, Raymond leaned forward. "Adrienne, what happened? How did you end up here?" She didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on the coffee cup, on the steam rising in delicate spirals. "It's a long story," she whispered. "I've got time." Another pause. Then, slowly, painfully, she began to speak. 1997. Ridgemont High School. Raymond Monroe was 17 years old, working 2 jobs after school to help his mother keep the lights on. His father had left when Raymond was 11, walked out one night and never came back. And ever since, Raymond had carried a weight on his shoulders that most boys his age couldn't imagine. He was tired, angry sometimes, determined to build a life where his mother would never have to worry about money again. He had no time for distractions. And then, Adrienne Sinclair walked into his chemistry class. She was the new girl, quiet, reserved, with long dark hair that fell past her shoulders and a habit of writing in the margins of her notebooks instead of taking actual notes. She sat in the back corner by the window and spent most of class staring outside, like she was dreaming of somewhere far away. They were assigned as lab partners. At first, Raymond found her strange, distant, hard to read. But slowly, conversation by conversation, wall by wall, he began to see the person beneath the silence. Adrienne's father was strict, a military man who moved the family every few years and expected perfection from his only daughter. Her mother was gentle but passive, never contradicting her husband even when she should have. Adrienne had learned early that the safest place to exist was inside her own head, inside the poetry she wrote when no one was watching. Raymond understood that. The need to escape, the need to create something beautiful in a world that often felt anything but. By October, they were inseparable. By December, they were in love. It was the kind of love that only happens when you're young, reckless, consuming, utterly convinced that nothing could ever tear you apart. They spent hours talking about their dreams. Raymond wanted to build things, houses maybe, something solid and lasting. Adrienne wanted to write novels, poetry, stories that would make people feel less alone. They made plans. After graduation, they would figure it out together. They would find a way. But life, as Raymond would learn again and again, had other plans. In the summer of 1998, Adrienne's father accepted a job transfer to New Mexico, military orders, non-negotiable. Raymond still remembered the night she told him. They had been sitting on the hood of his beat-up Chevy, parked at the overlook on Miller's Ridge, watching the stars. She had been quiet all evening, and when she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "We're moving. Next month. My dad got transferred." Raymond's heart had stopped. "New Mexico," she continued, the words thick with tears she was trying not to shed. "It's 2,000 miles away, Raymond. I looked it up." They had promised to stay in touch. They had sworn it, written letters, made plans to call whenever they could scrape together enough coins for a payphone. And for a while, they did. Letters crossed the country, filled with longing and hope and desperate attempts to hold on to something that was already slipping away. But time has a way of eroding even the strongest intentions. The letters grew shorter, less frequent. Life got busy. Raymond started community college while still working to support his mother. Adrienne started at a new school where she knew no one, drowning in loneliness. By the following spring, the letters had stopped entirely. Raymond had tried to find her. For years he had tried. But Adrienne Sinclair had become a ghost, a memory that haunted him in quiet moments, a question that never received an answer. What happened to her? Did she ever think about me? Did she find happiness? Eventually, he had forced himself to let go. He met Margot during his second year of college, a bright, warm woman who made him laugh and saw the good in everyone. They fell in love, got married, had Hazel. And Raymond convinced himself that Adrienne was just a chapter from another lifetime. A beautiful chapter, but a closed one. Except now, that chapter was sitting across from him in a grocery store cafe, pregnant and homeless and more broken than he ever could have imagined. "I thought about you," Adrienne said quietly, finally meeting his eyes. "Over the years, I wondered where you were. If you were happy." Raymond's throat tightened. "I thought about you too, more than I probably should have." A sad smile flickered across her lips. "Look at us, all those dreams we had." "What happened, Adrienne?" Raymond asked gently. "After you moved, what happened to you?" She took a long, shaky breath, and then she told him everything. If this story is touching your heart right now, I want you to pause for just a moment. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever reconnected with someone from your past? Someone you thought you'd lost forever? I'd love to hear your story. And if you haven't already, tap that like button. It sounds small, but it truly helps more people discover stories like this one. Now, let's continue, because what Adrienne revealed next, it shattered Raymond's heart. After the move to New Mexico, Adrienne's life began to unravel in ways she never could have predicted. Her mother, the gentle, quiet woman who had always been her anchor, was diagnosed with kidney failure when Adrienne was 22. For 3 years, Adrienne watched her fade, spent every spare moment at her bedside, held her hand during dialysis treatments and doctor's appointments, and long, silent nights in the hospital. Her mother passed away 3 days after Adrienne's 25th birthday. Her father, never a warm man to begin with, retreated further into himself after that. He had loved his wife in his own rigid, unexpressive way, and her death broke something inside him that couldn't be repaired. He started forgetting things, small things at first, then bigger ones. Within 2 years, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Adrienne became his caretaker, his nurse, his everything. She put her own dreams on hold. No more writing, no more poetry, no more thoughts of a life beyond hospital rooms and medication schedules. She was 25, then 28, then 30, and somewhere along the way, the years blurred together into a single, endless fog of exhaustion. Her father died when she was 30, and Adrienne found herself completely alone for the first time in her life. No siblings, no extended family, no close friends. She had never stayed in one place long enough to build those kinds of connections. Just emptiness. She drifted, worked odd jobs, waitressing, retail, whatever paid the bills. Moved from city to city, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots. The loneliness became a constant companion, so familiar she almost stopped noticing it. And then, at 41, she met Vincent. He was charming, Adrienne said, her voice bitter now. The kind of charming that sweeps you off your feet before you realize you're falling. He said all the right things, did all the right things, made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't meant to be alone forever. Raymond listened in silence, his hands clenched beneath the table. "When I found out I was pregnant," Adrienne's voice cracked. She paused, composing herself. "I thought it was a miracle. I was 41. I never thought I'd have a child. And Vincent, he seemed so happy at first. We talked about the future, about the nursery, about names." She trailed off, and Raymond saw the exact moment the memory turned dark. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Adrienne's jaw tightened. "He left. The moment the pregnancy became real, the moment he realized this wasn't just an idea, but an actual child that would need things, cost money, change his life." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He disappeared, changed his phone number, emptied our shared bank account. I woke up one morning and he was just gone, like he had never existed at all." Raymond felt a surge of anger so intense it surprised him. His fists clenched tighter. "I tried to make it work on my own," Adrienne continued. "I got a job at a diner, worked double shifts as long as I could, but the pregnancy made everything harder. I was exhausted all the time, getting sick constantly. Eventually, I couldn't work enough hours to cover rent." She swallowed hard. "I lost my apartment 2 weeks ago. I've been staying at a shelter on Oak Street, the women's shelter near the highway, but they only let residents stay until 8 in the morning. After that, you have to leave. So I spend most days just walking, trying to find warm places, libraries, coffee shops, anywhere I can sit for a while." She looked down at her belly, at the life growing inside her. "I came back to Virginia because it was the only place that ever felt like home. I thought I don't know. I thought maybe being here would help me figure out what to do next." Her voice broke. "But I don't know what to do, Raymond. I have nothing. No money, no family, no one who would even notice if I disappeared. And in a few weeks, I'm going to have a baby I have no idea how to take care of. And I'm so scared I can barely breathe." Tears streamed down her face now, and she wiped at them furiously, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to dump all of this on you. You have your own life, your own problems. I shouldn't have—" "Raymond." Raymond's voice was firm. Not harsh, but firm. She stopped mid-sentence, looking up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "You're not going back to that shelter." Adrienne blinked. "What?" "I have a spare room," Raymond said. "It's not fancy, just a small bedroom at the end of the hall, but it's warm, it's safe, and it's yours for as long as you need it." "Raymond, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking," he interrupted. "I'm offering, and I'm not taking no for an answer." He glanced over at Hazel, who had stopped coloring and was watching them with wide, attentive eyes. She met his gaze and nodded solemnly, as if she understood exactly what was happening, as if she approved. Raymond turned back to Adrienne. "No one should go through what you're facing alone," he said quietly. "Especially not you." Adrienne stared at him for a long, trembling moment. The walls she had built, the defenses that had kept her surviving for so many years, began to crack. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for me, after all this time?" Raymond considered the question carefully, and when he answered, his voice was steady. "Because 23 years ago, you were the first person who ever made me believe I could be more than what I came from. You saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself, and I never forgot that." He reached across the table and gently took her hand. "Let me see something in you now. Let me help you, Adrienne. Please." The tears came harder now, but they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. That night, for the first time in weeks, Adrienne slept in a real bed. The spare room was small but clean, a single bed with a quilt that smelled faintly of lavender, a nightstand with a reading lamp, and a window that looked out over the backyard where Hazel's swing sets stood waiting for warmer weather. Before Adrienne could settle in, Hazel appeared in the doorway clutching a well-worn stuffed elephant with floppy ears and missing button eyes. "This is Peanut. He's my protector. He keeps away bad dreams." Adrienne knelt down to Hazel's level, her heart swelling. "He sounds very brave." "He is." Hazel hesitated, then thrust the elephant toward Adrienne. "You can borrow him, just for tonight, so you don't have bad dreams either." Adrienne's eyes filled with fresh tears. She accepted the elephant gently, as if it were made of glass. "Thank you, Hazel,"
That's the kindest thing anyone has done for me in a very long time." Hazel beamed, then scampered off to her own room. Mission accomplished.
Raymond appeared in the doorway a moment later, a soft smile on his face. "She's something else, isn't she?" "She's wonderful," Adrienne said. "You've raised her well, Raymond. Her mother would be proud." A shadow passed over Raymond's expression, grief that never fully faded, but he nodded. "Margot would have liked you," he said quietly. "She had a gift for seeing people's hearts. She would have seen yours." Adrienne didn't know what to say, so she simply nodded, clutching Peanut the elephant to her chest. "Get some rest," Raymond said. "Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps together, okay?" "Okay." He turned to leave, then paused. "Adrienne?" "Yes?" "I'm glad you're here." And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Adrienne believed that someone meant it. The days that followed passed slowly at first, then faster as they settled into an unexpected rhythm. Adrienne helped Hazel with her homework in the afternoons, math problems and spelling words, and the occasional science project involving baking soda volcanoes. Raymond drove Adrienne to her prenatal appointments, sitting in waiting rooms with outdated magazines while doctors monitored the baby's heartbeat and assured them everything was progressing normally. In the evenings, they cooked dinner together. Simple meals, nothing fancy, but made with care. Raymond discovered that Adrienne still remembered his weakness for mac and cheese made from scratch, the way his mother used to make it. Adrienne discovered that Raymond had become a surprisingly competent cook in the years since she'd known him. They talked. Hours and hours of talking, filling in the gaps of 23 years. Raymond told her about Margot, how they met at a community college mixer, how she had spilled punch on his shirt and apologized so profusely that he had asked her out just to stop her from apologizing, how she had made everything brighter simply by existing, how losing her had nearly destroyed him. Adrienne told him about the poems she had never published, the novels she had started and abandoned, the dreams that had slowly faded under the weight of grief and responsibility and survival. "Do you still write?" Raymond asked one evening as they sat on the back porch watching Hazel chase fireflies in the yard. Adrienne was quiet for a moment. "No," she admitted. "I haven't written anything in years. I'm not sure I remember how. Maybe you just need a reason to start again." She looked at him, really looked at him, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, an understanding. One evening, about 3 weeks after Adrienne had moved in, Hazel looked up from her coloring book with an expression of intense concentration. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart?" "You smile more now." Raymond blinked, caught off guard. "I do?" Hazel nodded seriously. Her crayon paused mid-stroke. "You used to smile sometimes, but your eyes were still sad. Now your eyes smile too." Raymond felt a lump form in his throat. He glanced at Adrienne, who was watching the exchange with soft, glistening eyes. "Adrienne makes you happy," Hazel continued matter-of-factly. "I like her. I think she should stay forever." Adrienne laughed softly, wiping at her eyes. "Hazel, you are something special." "I know," Hazel said, returning to her coloring with the casual confidence only a 7-year-old could possess. That night, after Hazel was asleep, Raymond sat alone on the front porch looking up at the stars. The night was cold but clear, and the sky was filled with more light than darkness. He thought about Margot, about the life they had built together, about the vows he had made, to love her, to cherish her, to keep her memory alive. He knew, somewhere deep in his bones, that she would want him to be happy, that she would want Hazel to grow up in a house filled with love and warmth and laughter. For the first time in 3 years, Raymond allowed himself to imagine a future. And it didn't feel like a betrayal. It felt like healing. March arrived with the first hints of spring. Daffodils pushing through thawed earth, birdsong returning to the morning air, and a nervous energy that had settled over the Monroe household. Adrienne was due any day now. Her bag was packed by the front door, the car seat was installed in Raymond's truck. Hazel had made a welcome sign for the baby using every color of crayon she owned, complete with glitter glue and stickers shaped like stars. They were ready. Or at least, as ready as anyone could be. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, appropriately the same day of the week that had changed Raymond's life so many times before. Adrienne was in the kitchen, helping Hazel make a snack, when she suddenly gasped and grabbed the counter. "Adrienne?" Raymond was on his feet instantly. "What's wrong?" "I think," she breathed through gritted teeth, "I think it's time." Everything after that became a blur of motion and adrenaline. Raymond grabbed the hospital bag. Hazel grabbed Peanut, the elephant, insisting the baby would need protection too. Adrienne breathed through contractions in the back seat while Raymond drove faster than he probably should have. At the hospital, Adrienne was whisked away by nurses while Raymond handled paperwork and tried to keep Hazel calm. Hours passed. Long, agonizing hours. Raymond paced the waiting room floor while Hazel dozed in a chair, Peanut clutched to her chest. He bought terrible coffee from a vending machine and didn't drink it. He checked the clock every 3 minutes and tried not to imagine everything that could go wrong. Finally, a nurse appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Monroe?" Raymond's heart stopped. "Yes?" The nurse smiled. "She's asking for you." The room was quiet when Raymond entered, filled with the soft glow of afternoon light filtering through half-closed blinds. Adrienne lay in the hospital bed, exhausted but radiant, her hair damp with sweat, her face streaked with dried tears, and in her arms, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, was the smallest, most perfect human being Raymond had ever seen. Adrienne whispered, her voice hoarse, "Come meet her." He approached slowly, almost reverently, and sank into the chair beside the bed. Hazel appeared at his elbow, standing on tiptoes to peer at the bundle. "Is that her? The baby?" "This is her," Adrienne confirmed softly. Hazel studied the tiny face with intense concentration. The baby had a button nose and rosebud lips and the faintest wisps of dark hair on her head. "She's so little," Hazel observed, "like a doll, a real doll." Adrienne laughed weakly. "She is pretty little, isn't she?" "What's her name?" Hazel asked eagerly. "Does she have a name yet?" Adrienne looked up at Raymond. Their eyes met, and in that moment 1,000 words passed between them without sound. "I've been thinking about that," Adrienne said softly. "For weeks now I've been trying to find the right name, something that meant something, something that captured what this journey has been." She paused, her eyes glistening. "And I think I found it." "What is it?" Hazel demanded, bouncing impatiently. Adrienne smiled, a real smile, the first truly unburdened smile Raymond had seen from her. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope, because that's what your daddy gave me when I had none left. That night outside the grocery store, when I thought my life was over, when I thought no one in the world cared whether I existed," her voice broke. "He gave me hope, and now, every time I look at her, I'll remember that kindness can change everything, that love can find you even when you've stopped looking for it." Raymond's vision blurred. He blinked hard, but it didn't help. Hazel reached out and very gently touched Hope's tiny hand. The baby's fingers curled instinctively around Hazel's pinky. "Hi, Hope," she whispered. "I'm Hazel. I'm going to be your big sister." She looked up at Adrienne seriously. "I'm going to protect her, just like Peanut protects me." Adrienne laughed through her tears. "I believe you will, sweetheart." Raymond reached out and took Adrienne's hand, the same hand he had held on that cold night outside the grocery store, the same hand he had held when they were 17 and believed nothing could ever separate them. "Thank you," Adrienne whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. When I was invisible to everyone else in the world, you saw me."
Raymond squeezed her hand gently. "I'll always see you, Adrienne. I always have."
This story was shared by the Monroe family in 2019. Today, Raymond and Adrienne are married, raising Hazel and Hope together in the same small Virginia town where their story began, not once, but twice. The spare room at the end of the hall is now Hope's nursery, painted soft yellow and filled with books and stuffed animals and a well-loved elephant named Peanut who still stands guard against bad dreams. Adrienne started writing again. Her first published piece was an essay titled "The Night Someone Saw Me," and it went on to be featured in a regional literary magazine. She's working on a novel now, a story about second chances and the strange ways life brings people back together. Raymond still works with his hands, building things that are solid and lasting, just like he always dreamed. But now he comes home to a house filled with laughter and warmth and love, a house that no longer echoes with absence. And Hazel? She's 12 now, and she has fully embraced her role as big sister. She reads bedtime stories to Hope every night, complete with all the silly voices their mothers taught her. Because that's what family means. Not blood, not obligation, not circumstance. Family means choosing each other, showing up for each other, seeing each other when the rest of the world looks away. Raymond didn't save Adrienne that cold February night. They saved each other. And maybe that's the lesson, that the people we're meant to help are sometimes the very ones we've been searching for all along. Thank you so much for staying until the very end. Stories like this remind us that kindness is never wasted, that the smallest act of compassion can change the entire course of someone's life. And sometimes the people we reach out to end up being the ones who heal us. If this story touched your heart, I want to ask you for 3 small things. First, share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know whose life might be changed by a story of hope. Second, drop a comment below and tell me what part of Raymond and Adrienne's story moved you the most. I read every single comment and I would love to hear from you. And third, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join the Soul Tales family. We share stories like this one every week, stories that remind us what it means to be human. Until next time, take care of each other.